All right, everybody. I hope that you've had a great Sunday and also the rest of the weekend, even though I guess Sunday is the one where you kind of get to not do anything. But, for many of you, that's the rest of the week. And, I think that this is certainly a good week to think about doing nothing, seeing as, there's certainly more cause to think that the world is more and more on the brink of a major crisis, whether it's economic, whether it's the nuclear crisis with Russia. And for me, it was a frustrating weekend, all in all, mostly because I had to realize that even though I do have friends on both sides of the political aisle, I'll turn the camera on now. I have friends on both sides of the political aisle. Nobody understands how fucking retarded this war is. And there are still people. Yeah, Pinochet, I'll turn the camera on. Turn it on already. But look, there's a lot of people who don't see the actual value of looking at the evidence. They'll trust their preferred source of information, and anybody who tries to inject a little bit of skepticism there. Oh crap! Just my stupid opinion just went live too. Well, I guess I'll catch him later. I do like watching his channel. I'm not even kidding. Just because I like to hear about what's happening up in Canada. It's surprising that here in the States we don't even hear what the fuck happens up there, even though it's closer. Canada is closer to where I live than fucking LA, where I have almost nothing in common with a lot of people, and I'm not afraid to say that. Canada maybe a little, but in California, they're fucking yoga mats. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating knowing that our entire country is basically beholden to the most popular state over there, where they don't even want to look after their own interests. So look, last stuff to get to here. Now, I did put James Comey. I put Comey Mierda, which was something that it was a hashtag somebody came up with on Lionel's channel. So I thought I would put it up. But, and for those of you that don't habla español, come mierda means eat shit in Spanish. So, I didn't get to watch the interview, but I do have the transcript, and there's a number of items on it that I think are really just fucked up. Although I guess in retrospect, I didn't save the highlights on the regular one, so I'm gonna have to go back to, which doesn't matter. I'm gonna have to go back to the original in order to read it with the highlights. But I have only a couple highlights anyway. And I have to silence this, mute it. Let me see here. Yeah, so we're gonna talk a little about that, the Comey interview. Probably talk a little more about it as the week goes on, as we see the fallout. I'm hoping that there's going to be a full version online. If somebody can send me a full version online, please do. Hey, J-Man, glad to have you back. Please share the stream. And there's more revelations regarding the story that I'm working on, which is the most important story. And if you guys aren't sharing it, then it's not going to go anywhere. It needs as many people to share it with people that will do something as possible. And that, of course, is the Rachel Maddow fake news story. And it's not just Rachel Maddow. I just say Rachel Maddow because that's the quickest name to say. But you might as well also say Huffington Post. Now that I've dug a bit deeper, I could have probably figured at the beginning. But, the Huffington Post published the same bullshit piece about Bernie Sanders voting groups on Facebook. Just supporters, informal supporters. All of you have probably been in informal groups, whether it's on Facebook or it's on a different online platform or here on YouTube, whatever the fuck it is. And you've said things and interacted with people in favor of one candidate or another, whether it was, you know, Rick Santorum. I know there's a lot of Rick Santorum fans out in the audience. Both of you guys probably, right? Rick Santorum all the way, right? Give me an R for Rick, Ranger Rick. We'll see how the enthusiasm. I know that you haven't given up hope that he'll get elected. Yeah, there we have. So Pinochet says no groups will have me. Well, maybe it's because you don't share shit. So yeah, share that interview. So yeah, Huffington Post, NBC7 San Diego. Who else? Politico. Politico would be the other biggest culprit because they directly use this story to attack Sanders himself. And you know, I don't support Sanders. You don't support Sanders. A lot of you guys. This isn't about helping Bernie Sanders. This is about exposing lies. And if they're lying about Bernie Sanders and people find out about it, it's safe to assume that a lot of those same people who support Sanders will realize that there are a lot of lies about Donald Trump as well. There are people who already know that. There, Pinochet, I actually uncensored that. But no, I'll decline that offer, weirdo. So, he thinks he's gonna. So look, the idea behind having media to share, especially whether it's my blog posts or if it's the videos or if it's the Steam It or anything, is that there will be more people viewing it and more people reading the information, and eventually, it goes up the chain. We're not at the top of the media food chain. I mean, that should be obvious by now. You're looking at somebody who has an Isaiah Thomas Coke poster behind him and a bunch of dirty bookshelves and an empty living room. So, the objective is to make more people see the story. And once again, and I'm going to keep coming back to this as the time goes on, whether the media is besmirching the reputations of a Trump supporter or a Bernie supporter or a supporter of some other candidate, Hillary supporters are never going to smear. But that is that if we don't hold them to account for not telling the truth or for believing lies and propagating them, then we're not actually trying to do anything here. We're not trying to. You don't have to make it into a giant crusade, but there should be a goal being accomplished. Look, I was just on while I was prepping my coffee to do this. I was watching somebody else's live stream. Not going to say who. And all it was about bullshit on YouTube, about another person's channel. And while that's fun and you can laugh at it and it's hilarious, and sometimes I'll go on and support somebody's channel. I'm not on this channel to change YouTube. I'm on this channel to share stories and share topics that I think are going to make a difference in certain issues that we're going through. Otherwise, I can talk shit about people I know. I don't have to talk shit about people I'll never meet in my life, like some of these YouTubers that are being talked about. I get it, that's fun, but that's not what I'm here to do. So, look, let's go through a couple of the topics. Now, I want to start with the Syria war. So far as I understood, 70% of the missiles were shot down anyway, and they dropped a Moab somewhere. And if anybody wants to fill that in for me in terms of, I'll just type it out. There's maybe it wasn't a Moab bomb, but there were cruise missile strikes on a base in Syria, and people that I know were saying basically, yeah, that's they weren't saying it was fantastic, but they meant that it was fantastic, and it really gets me to think that people don't have the capacity to think long term. They think, yes, a country that we hate, sure, let's go to war with them. I mean, what if we started hating Haiti just for argument's sake? Because Haiti, whatever reason, I'm not going to try to get into trouble here, but would it be advisable to invade Haiti? Well, we have before. We did in 1993. For those of you that don't know, and did it solve the problem there? No. In Somalia, we had that mission in 92 and 93 with both President Bush and President Clinton. Didn't accomplish anything. It's still a shithole. The objective of a military mission is to accomplish a goal, including stabilizing a region and promoting a better world. And no, that's not what's going to happen in Syria. And I'm not a pacifist by any means. I see there's a new viewer. I don't know who he is. Truth, Justice, Peace. I'm not pacifist. I'm just saying I'm not going to support a war that I don't know the objective for it. To me, it appeared to be an appeasement strike, appeasing the mainstream media, military-industrial complex, and Israel. Not effective. It could be any of those, and I'll tell you what. I'm a former Israeli soldier, so it could very well be. I wouldn't be, I'd probably oppose it even if it was on behalf of Israel. I can oppose, and this guy's probably going to dip out now and call me, a baby killer or something, but I don't give a shit. I can oppose certain decisions or policies of the American government or the Israeli government without opposing those nations in and of themselves. That's what it means to have a free a free will, and not to just go along with the herd. There's a lot of people who are saying, we have to support this airstrike because we have to contain Russia in the world. Like, if that was the case, Russia has been basically abusing Chechnya for decades. Are we going to get involved there? Obviously not. Obviously not. It's the same. What's the difference between Syria itself, which is killing its civilians in a certain way, and Russia, which kills its own civilians in Chechnya? It's the same idea. Now, am I in favor of them murdering people in Chechnya or killing them, whatever you want to call it? Sometimes I guess you can make the case it's not murder. I don't think it's our fucking fight. I don't think we have to get involved in every fucking war in the world, and I'm not going to support it. Truth, Justice, and Peace. Well, let me read Pinochet again, because it's the same. It's the exact same playbook they used in 2013 and 2017. It's a white helmets hoax. Yeah. Okay. Let's go beyond the obvious. You know that. I know that. Or we believe that. I don't see compelling evidence. I think that's where I start off. Yeah, I think it's a white helmets hoax as well. That has to be proven too. But you have to prove that the Syrians did it in order to justify a military strike. And if there's no compelling proof that they did it, then I'm not going to support. And as much as I dislike the Syrian government, and I see a lot of people on who are admittedly far right, alt-righters, or people who consider themselves really far left, who say, well, the Assad government is actually good. No, neither government is good. Neither side is good. That's why you don't get involved in the war. Truth, Justice, Peace says he had to do something to get the mainstream media to stop talking about evil Assad. This seemed like the least hurtful option. Yeah, we should not support it for sure. Yeah. I mean, I would have said he shouldn't have done anything yet. He should have done an investigation first. He should have done literally nothing until an investigation was conducted. That would have been what I would have done. It's easy to play armchair quarterback. I think what Truth, Justice, Peace is trying to get across is that he's being compelled by both elements within his own government and international pressure from countries that would include Britain, France, Israel. I don't think China. I would hope not China. I hope China's not trying to get us to attack Russia. But, I personally believe that the greatest threat to the country at the moment is China for economic reasons, and that's about it. And if any of you want to, argue with me about that, I'm fine with arguing about that. I am not going to support a war based on a lack of investigation. Notice it says Assad has the complete backing of his people, and he's a dictator that sadly what is needed to contain the radicals in his life. No, I'm not going to support that belief either, because he's to say that he's what's needed is to ignore the fact that he's part of the reason that it happened. Okay, so like I say every time, the fact that I oppose a war against a piece of shit like Bashar Assad doesn't mean that I support him. Jimmy Ross, did you put enough fucking hashtags in your title? No, I could actually add more. I could add Jimmy Ross snorts coke. Yeah, I could add that one. Do you want me to add another hashtag? Jimmy Ross busted with hookers. That's a pretty long hashtag. I could make it up. Yeah, I was thinking about which ones to put in there. So, but I could have put some other ones. And to tell you the truth, the one that only meth. The one that I still wanted to put in was the Comey mierda, which isn't even that trendy. But because Lionel had talked about it, I thought it would be funny to use. If the radicals weren't being armed and supported, there wouldn't be much of a threat. Yeah, and the United States, and I think we're all in agreement here. What I'm tired of is people repeating the same stuff, and then expecting that to be kind of a course of action. Okay, the reality is that yes, those of us that are in the chat at the moment don't believe that the United States should be involved in Syria. The problem is that we have to decide what we're trying to support. And I am not going to support Bashar Assad. I'm not going to support him in any shape, way, or form. What I would support, and that could be construed as support for Bashar Assad, and I could care less about it, is an idea that I've heard about. I think even, and this is bizarre, and you guys might hate me for it, but Jeremy Corbyn actually, are drunken hecklers allowed here? Are drunken hecklers, is there anybody besides those here for Oak Healer? What kind of fucking question is that? Lost my train of thought. Yeah, never ask that question again. Are they allowed here? So yeah, the idea is, and Corbyn actually voiced this idea, and it's an idea that I voiced last year. Maybe he said it last year too. I don't know. But if he really wanted to do something that changed the course of events over there, it would be to convene some sort of international conference to withdraw all foreign troops from Syria, including Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, the U.S. and Russia, and then it would probably be a solution. Jimmy Ross is saying, I'm for bombing California. Why bomb Syria when California is closer? Well, I don't know where you guys live, but I was about to propose New Jersey earlier today. I argue with a lot of people from New Jersey for some reason. Can't stand it. It's a trash garden state. It's not. I mean, what garden state? I don't know how it got that name. Apparently, half of the state is populated by what are called Pineys, which are kind of like hill people, but in these in these, I think it's just called Pine Country, the Pine Barrens. That's what they're called, out in southeastern New Jersey. So on next issue, unless anybody has any objection, I think we will talk a little about James Comey, but I'm only starting today because I don't have a TV, so I am gonna have to watch the whole interview. So if you guys want to fill me in the chat on your favorite moments, if you watched it, then let me know, because I'm going off of a transcript. Yeah, it's hard for the USA not to be involved in Syria when it has bases operating in Syria. Look, the effort against ISIS, if we could have completed that effort, it would have been, I guess, fine for what it's worth. what solves the problem in Syria? Is the solution to the problem in Syria to have all the refugees that are from Syria go back there? Because I don't know if we're capable of accomplishing that as a country. It has to be an international convention that those people get sent back to Syria and get resettled. Hey, Eric, what's going on? How's it going? The other issue with what is winning in Syria? Is winning in Syria deposing the Assad regime? I would say no. Winning in Syria is creating a reality where you don't have foreign troops involved there. And if you replace the regime over there with a jihadist regime, it's very likely you're going to be involved there again. So, the main objective here is to withdraw all foreign troops from there and have the government and whoever is opposing them fight it out. And whoever comes out on top, we hope that they're not somebody we're going to have to bomb. How were we fighting the rebels but also wanting Assad gone? Were we fighting both sides? Weren't the rebels with ISIS? Well, that's one of the gray areas there, because a lot of the rebel groups originally were fighting ISIS too, and then ISIS was too strong, and they basically seized control of a lot of rebel groups. And and the rebel groups that are not ISIS are also, a lot of them are jihadists, but they're more for a local farm-based jihad, what do they call it, local grown. So therefore, we'll murder people here, but we'll, for the time being, we're just going to keep it in, keep it local, keep it South Side, as they say in Chicago. And then I don't know why it just held Truth Justice Peace's comment. YouTube's been kind of flaky. If anybody's been trying to comment on a video that I've made, and they, not during the stream, but afterward, and it hasn't been working, somebody tell me, because actually another creator, Nick Taylor, named Nick Taylor, told me that he couldn't comment earlier this week. So that was really weird. Two creators. So two other creators that I know said that they weren't able to comment on my videos, which I've never heard of before. So Jimmy is asking to break it down. I think you're talking about the Syrian conflict. So yeah, you're right. It's at the simplest, it's a four-way conflict. At the simplest interpretation is a four-way conflict, because there's the Assad regime supported by Iran, Russia, some Yemenis. What is going on there? Yeah, you're right. They do censor that. That's fucked up. So yeah, the Syrian war, there's at least four sides, if not far more than that, because you have the Assad regime, you have some of the rebel groups that were originally called the Free Syrian Army, the FSA, who are very, very divided and fractured, and they don't have a real leadership. That's probably why a lot of them ended up becoming jihadists or joined jihadist groups, and the Muslim Brotherhood infiltrated them. The Muslim Brotherhood has the longest track record of opposition in Syria, because they were opposing Assad's dad in the 80s. So in some ways it was inevitable. I'm shadow banned on AJ Plus and MSNBC. Look, if you could help me fuck with MSNBC, I have a story below, and you guys should share it, okay? But look through. There's these 3 links under BitChute. If you spread those links about MSNBC, that's a good way to get back at them. Anyway, so those are two sides: the quote unquote moderate rebels, the Assad regime, and then there's ISIS, which started out in Iraq and started to grow largely because of Qatari and Saudi shadow funding. And then you get the Kurds, who are not exactly united either, although they do have an alliance called the YPG and Rojava. So, in my opinion, the only valid side in that conflict to actually give any support to right now is the Kurds, and it's not very convenient to do that for the very reason that it would further complicate our ties with Turkey. And for whatever reason we want to keep ties with Turkey, I would personally, I think Turkey is no longer our ally. I think that they're basically, they support jihadists by now. But that's the way it is. I'm not telling you how I would want it to be. I'm just saying that that's the way the world is. Pinochet says the only issue we should be concerned with in Syria isn't the Kurds in the north, different from the Kurds in Iraq that are Marxist freaks. And truth, justice, and peace, and Turkey's and Israel's wants and desires. Look, everything you're saying, and I'll say it, even look, all the countries in the region have been interventionists in this war, and that includes Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Israel as well. So you can't only blame Iran. As much as you might hate Iran, and I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the Iranian government, but you have to factor in other countries that are involved in one way or another. Turkey and Saudi Arabia, I think, are almost on the same side, and Israel in some ways is getting closer with Saudi Arabia now. But you can't say that Israel and Turkey are on the same side, because Turkey supports the Hamas movement against Israel. So it just gets more complicated and whatever. That's why I oppose foreign aid to any country over there. Turkey, Israel, Egypt, any of them. I think it's a bad idea. And I think we can have normal relations with all those countries without giving them foreign aid. All of them. And I'm not afraid to tell people that, even at the risk of being called, against Arabs or anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. I served in the army there. I don't think it actually helped being in the army there that there was foreign aid. I think it actually creates an incentive to keep conflicts going. I think it actually, and by the way, they fund the Palestinian Authority too. So it's a bad idea. It actually subsidizes wars, and wars are going to happen. I don't think that we're going to achieve world peace. I'm just saying that it's better for America economically and on the world stage not to be involved in literally every conflict in the world. So that's it. I'm not going to talk anymore about Syria because there are other topics that I do want to cover that I think are also kind of important, and I don't want to, there's other work I want to do even though it's late tonight. So the issue with Jim Comey, okay? So the interview, so far as I've heard, is kind of one of those pretentious puff pieces that get released every so often when the media has somebody that's looking to redeem themselves. I mean, I'm struggling to think of a different famous person who's had that, but I remember when Michael Vick got out of prison, for example, and I was a huge fan of Michael Vick, but he had an interview like that. There was an interview, whenever a big celebrity couple gets divorced or somebody leaves the Church of Scientology, that's the type of interview they do, where they show sort of the human side of the person who's been maligned in the public eye, and they try to make them into a more sympathetic figure than they truly are. Back during the Clinton years, they did that with I'm trying to think. I think they did it with Lewinsky herself. She had a number of interviews, and then there was also Paula Jones. But in every case, they would make that interview at a juncture where anything she was saying wasn't important anymore. In this case, it kind of still is important. Then you'll have, there'll be people. Oh, Caitlyn Jenner is an excellent example. After Caitlyn Jenner stopped being Bruce, suddenly she gets all these interviews. She, whatever. gets on the cover of I think it was Sports Illustrated. I think it was the 41st anniversary of the cover of the Montreal Games. So I don't know why somebody gets on the cover of a magazine 41 years after they were on it for something entirely different. I mean, let's hear you guys make sense of that one. That's the type of interview. Yeah, Tanya Harding. Tanya Harding actually might have deserved a little bit of sympathy because the public understanding of what happened there is wrong. She's not actually in point of fact. This is the difference between Jim Comey example and Tanya Harding's example. Jim Comey is trying to cover up what actually happened. Tanya Harding would probably, and I've seen documentaries with her, and you know she's wrong for having been involved in any way in this, but she never actually attacked Nancy Kerrigan. Some people who were associated with her, led by her ex-husband Jeff Gillooly, assaulted Nancy Kerrigan. It's not even close to being the same situation, but the interview situation is exactly the way it is. Yeah, she didn't wield the crowbar either, lol. But well, she didn't. I mean, that's the fact. What do you want? I mean, you want me to? Either you're trolling or you simply won't believe me. There's no account that holds her as being the person who assaulted Nancy Kerrigan. I don't think she was even in the same city at the time. She might have been, unless they were at the same event. But yeah, it was Jeff Gillooly who did it. And that's why it became such a scandal, and why people were asking whether she would actually be convicted or anything. And people were asking, you know, was Jeff Gillooly taking the fall for her? Not really, because the only evidence shows that Gillooly was the person who did it. I do like, by the way, Truth, Justice, and Peace, whatever we might disagree on, I think the Tanya Harding story is one of the funniest and best stories that doesn't get talked about enough. I haven't seen the new one yet, the new movie. Pinochet says, Caitlyn suddenly became a tranny to distract from the time he got drunk, drive, and kill a lady convenient. That happened after he became a transsexual. Bro Keeler says, Comey is scum. Tonya was just from the wrong side of the tracks. Yeah, if you actually look at Tanya Harding's story, it's amazing she ever accomplished anything. She was really, an abused child, abused by her mom, and I don't see why she's more of a villain because Nancy Kerrigan was much more sympathetic. Okay, so back to the Comey interview. I don't know how we got into the topic of everything besides that, including Tanya Harding, but. Yeah, it might have been because I was trying to look for a parallel, but there's certain points where, you know, Stephanopoulos asked him about stuff during his career that maybe he thinks would burnish his reputation, you know, make him look better. But in reality, they just look a little bizarre. And this was the biggest one for me. Stephanopoulos says, you mentioned that Vice President Cheney at one point said, people are going to die because of what you're doing right now. Take us inside that room. James Comey says, it was the chief of staff's room in the West Wing of the White House, and we were engaged. I was at the Justice Department in number 2. You know, he goes through the whole fucking context and whatever. And, you know, let's just skip down to here. He says, and President Cheney presided at the meeting. He sat at the head of the table. I sat just to his left, and he looked me in the eye and said, thousands of people are going to die because of what you're doing. What he meant was, because you are making us stop this surveillance program because there was no lawful basis for it. People are going to die because of what you're doing. And my reaction was, and I said to him, that's not helping me. That makes me feel badly. I don't want people to die. I've devoted my entire life to protect innocent people. But I have to say, what the Justice Department can certify to what we find lawful, and what you really want, and that you really want it or that it's important, doesn't change the law. And so I can't, my view. And so it was thick with tension, and I felt I was going to be crushed like a grape, frankly. But in a way, there was no other way I could act. The law was clear. And so how could I possibly, as a leader of the Justice Department, sign up to something that we had no lawful basis for? And so we stood our ground. So this, in my opinion, is complete and total bullshit, and shows how transparently misleading. Comey is, and you know, again, I have to look at the whole interview, so I'm probably going to be addressing this again at some point if I can find the whole video. So why do I say that this is bullshit? Because he's, first of all, he's saying that he objects to a surveillance program that's going on with the NSA, and he says that he objected to it with Dick Cheney and that he wouldn't go along with it. Well, the fact is that after it was instituted anyway, under the Patriot Act, etc., and it was implemented time and time again, and it was used over and over again. And the FBI was privy to a lot of and you know, complicit with the NSA, you know, all of these things under both Bush and Obama. Well, you never hear any objection from Comey about that ever again. Not until today. Until today, you don't hear him expressing any discomfort with anything that the NSA is doing, and that's imitate. And you know, I know a lot of you are thinking, well, the whole point is that he's trying to dump on Trump during the interview. Yes, that is the central. You know how people put together, you know, like a carnival contest with the stupid milk jugs that you're supposed to throw a baseball at or shoot with a rifle. Well, I guess that's the milk jug in the middle that will probably topple them all. But there's other milk jugs that are around it that are also, you know, pretty much, you know, they show that this is bullshit here. You have you have him pretending that he cares about NSA surveillance. Well, since when does he care about NSA surveillance? He never objected to it again. Other things, you know, and he says, you know, oh, in the end, Dick Cheney Dick Cheney didn't sign it in the end. So yeah, he describes a couple weird episodes with Mueller, and then, um, you know, Loretta Lynch. Uh, there was another reason that I was going to say though that it's kind of bullshit. Oh well, the other issue with what he said about the NSA is they was saying, well, on a legal basis, we're not allowed to like interpret the law as we want, as the FBI or whatever, or the Justice Department. He was the deputy. I think he wasn't deputy attorney general. What was he at the time? 1 second. Yeah, it was deputy attorney general until 2005. So, you know, he's deputy attorney general, and he's trying to say, well, we can't just pull the law out of our ass. Well, isn't that what you ended up doing as head of the FBI about the Hillary investigation when you said, oh, there's no intent there, you can't prosecute? I'm sorry, but the law has no. I mean, there's actually nothing in the law about whether there's intent or not. So how about now? Can you now pull the law out of your ass? So when it's time to spy on, you know, millions and millions of Americans, and they end up doing it anyway, but you pretend, oh, I have this moral crisis, guide me, oh Lord. Comey, by the way, always tries to fake his whole, you know, Catholic thing, and then Boy Scout. You know, I know people who are devout Catholics, and they don't behave the way James Comey does. Those are full of shit. You know, I know a woman who I used to work with. You couldn't say, you know, the name of the Lord around her. You couldn't. She was a very nice lady. Had you know, would say, you know, great sense of humor. You could not, I mean, it was just a fact. She had a line that you couldn't step over. Yeah, if any of you, well, one thing that would help, just FYI, if you can, um, in one of the links below, you have all my contact information on, for example, Twitter would be a good one if you can, but try to send me a link to a full length interview by video, and then we can keep talking about it and discussing it tomorrow. Also, if you want to leave in the description later kind of your observations, because I want to hear what you guys thought, and I'll try to read them after I watch the interview, because I think that there are different details that I think most people that are on this channel don't believe him, but I think people observe different details out of what he said that just show how little credibility he has. I don't know how anybody can still think he has credibility, because at the time, the Clinton campaign also said he didn't have credibility. It's almost one of the last bipartisan issues that people agree on, that James Comey had no credibility stemming from the 2016 campaign. So then later, Stephanopoulos says the first big controversy comes up late that summer, September 2015. I didn't highlight this, but I found it later while talking about the Lynch meeting. You have a meeting with the Attorney General Loretta Lynch because you've decided to say publicly there is a criminal investigation of Hillary Clinton, which many considered a break with precedent. So Comey says, yeah, it was not a break with precedent, but you're right. In the late summer, after the investigation had been open for 3 months and the whole world was talking about it, because you remember it began with a public referral from the Inspector General. So the candidates were talking about it, Congress was talking about it, the people were out there interviewing were talking about what we were out there interviewing were talking about it. I went to the Attorney General and said, you and I are both going to have public events coming in the next, I think it was a few days later. Do you think it's time to do what the Department of Justice policy permits in the appropriate case where there's a public interest that justifies it, confirming that you have an investigation? And she agreed. So Stephanopoulos says she agreed, but you write that she didn't want to call it an investigation. So Comey said, that's right. She agreed. Loretta Lynch and I had a great relationship with and still have a lot of respect for. And she said, I agree, but call it a matter. And I said, why would I do that? And she said, just call it a matter. And I didn't know exactly why she was doing that, but I decided in that moment that the whole world would miss the distinction between investigation and matter. And so I dropped it at that point. At my press event, I said, using the term matter, and I was right. The press missed it and said we'd confirmed an investigation. So, what's Comey doing here? He's essentially, verifying that the Justice Department was engaged in a bunch of public relations bullshit during the Clinton investigation. Stephanopoulos says, did you think she was going to protect Hillary Clinton? Comey says, I didn't know. It worried me. It gave me an uncomfortable feeling because the Clinton campaign. So he's always talking about how uncomfortable his feelings are with Dick Cheney and with Loretta Lynch. And it starts to give me the idea that Comey, when he gets pressed on something where there's an inconsistency or something that shows that he made some sort of moral sin, he starts to say, "Oh, I felt uncomfortable about it." But he's not. This is not the type of speech that a leader uses. There's people that are in positions of power that are able to, I guess, stick by their principles. Sally Yates, who you can criticize her all you want, but she took a stand against enforcing the borders, and she got fired for it. So you could say that she's a bitch, and you can say that she's a moron, but she took her stand, and she lived with it. James Comey didn't. He's been dissembling and lying the whole time, and that's a huge difference. That's something I think even Democrats can accept. That whereas Sally Yates, who was deputy Attorney General under Loretta Lynch and then became Attorney General when the Trump administration came into office and Lynch went out, she was willing to take the hit and lose her job in order to fuck with the law. And that's what happened. Maybe she was looking for the publicity, but that's not what James Comey did. So Truth, Justice, Peace says, Comey makes me fit. Truth, Justice, Peace. Are you also from Australia or are you from somewhere else? Comey makes me physically ill to watch. I can't make it more than 20 seconds. Mueller does the same to me. Ro Keeler says, does credibility even matter to these people? His testimony was riddled with, this is Pinochet, with inconsistency, lies, omissions, obfuscations, and doublespeak. Now, okay, Canada, cool. You mean the testimony, or do you mean the interview, Pinochet? Facts don't care about his feelings. See, now you had to bring Ben Shapiro into it. I'm kind of not, you know, Shapiro is kind of an annoying guy to me. I just find him irritating, but you know, he's right. He is right about that. So, yeah, and you know what? I probably will check out if I get a chance, either Shapiro's take on this, or there's other people who I think are, you know, Dershowitz could be, you know, Dershowitz I actually hate in terms of his, you know, his doublespeak or whatever, but there's a number of people that have great interpretations of this stuff. Andrew McCarthy for National Review is a brilliant guy, and I've actually read his book about convicting the blind sheik, the Al-Qaeda recruiter. So I will probably try to read or find any sound bites of his. Pinochet says, the more I find out about this scandal and the Juan brothers, the more I think freeze-dried fruit and ammo is a great investment. Well, they're a great investment anyway. I mean, neither of those will rot. So, I mean, you know, you have my blessing on that note. So, Comey continues, since the matter had come in, the investigation that started in July had been trying to come up with other words to describe it. You know, again, trying to parse words. They had used review, I think, security referral, things like that. And it did worry me that the Attorney General's direction was tracking that effort to avoid using the word investigation. And so, to be honest, it gave me a bad feeling, and maybe I should have pushed harder in the moment. Yeah, maybe you should have grown a fucking dick and balls, Comey. Stephanopoulos says, yeah, did you push her on it? Comey says, I didn't, because I've known Loretta for a long time. We worked the case together in the early 1990s, and she's a very smart person. Yeah, I bet they ate donuts together. You know, donuts. So we worked the case together in the early 1990s, and she's a very smart person. And if she had a reason that I couldn't see it in the Justice Department policy or something, she'd have given it to me. But her answer, she just do it, told me this is an order from the Attorney General. So it's not improper. It's a little bit off axis from the actual facts. But people are going to miss the distinction, and so I'm not going to fight this new Attorney General. This is not going to be our first battle. So understand that I think at the time, Lynch was yeah, I think Lynch was in office. Yeah, this was close to when she came into office, so that's consistent. So Stephanopoulos says, you think you should have fought harder? Comey says, yeah, I probably should have. Given that I respect Loretta, I probably should have pushed harder in the moment. So Stephanopoulos says, the investigation proceeds and your initial instinct is confirmed by the investigation. So that I guess it is by spring 2016, you're pretty clear you're not going to prosecute Hillary Clinton. So by spring 2016, before they're done interviewing people, and this Stephanopoulos is actually bringing up, this is important. And you say you took 1 week, and I think it was in May 2016, and began to draft a statement explaining the decision. Again, President Trump looks at that and says, you were writing the conclusion even before you interviewed Hillary Clinton. That is just wrong. James Comey says, yeah, I've heard that an awful lot, not just from President Trump, but from a lot of former prosecutors and former government people saying this shows that you had prejudged the matter. Here's my reaction. And the reason I smile a little bit is anybody who's actually done investigations knows that if you've been investigating something for almost a year and you don't have a general sense of where it's likely to end up, you should be fired because you're incompetent. So people have been seizing on that because they're saying, so first of all, the pace of the investigation was partially determined, and you know, Comey doesn't admit this part, but or maybe he will. But what I'm trying to say is, one of the reasons that investigation took a long time was because they weren't giving evidence over. It was getting hard. I mean, they never did find 30,000 emails. So for Comey to say that oh, it took a year, you should have probably be fired. So that's why he started drafting the conclusion. No, until you've seen all the evidence, that's when you draft the conclusion. I mean, to be honest with you, there have been cases. Think about FBI organized crime cases that took, in some cases 5 years to take place, and they had to get wiretap warrants and things like that in order to convict certain members of organized crime families, whether it's the Gambinos or other crime families around the country. Jeff Fort's Black Keystone Nation, for example. Those of you that know the Chicago thing. Jesse Jackson was involved, so they didn't go to prison. The other people did. So yeah, investigations could take much longer than a year. There were issues, for example, with the Whitey Bulger investigation up in Boston, the Irish gangster. The FBI was actually legally complicit in letting a criminal go free in order to get other criminals, and the guy was killing people left and right. So he doesn't know what I mean, he's pretending that he can play it out as if the FBI is a place where it's business as usual and things are done by the book or whatever. I mean, look, if there's anything that has been a lesson from the past 2 or 3 years, no, they're not even doing anything according to the law, much less according to an actual procedure of the FBI. Caitlin Comey. That's a nice one, Verl. Getting real spicy today, aren't we? So he goes on, he says, if you've been investigating for a year, you know that unless things change, we're going to head in this direction. Prosecutors and investigators all the time draft indictments before they finish the investigation. Their mind is open that if they find something that changes their view, they won't bring an indictment, but they know where it's headed after a year of investigation. Same thing here. That's got to be. I actually have a very hard time believing that. Now, maybe it's because I'm reading it with a lot of bias, but it's transparently wrong. People are now saying that it's actually an indication. If this is what Comey says about an investigation taking over a year, we're now at almost a year mark for the Mueller investigation. And no, he hasn't reached a conclusion, and he hasn't indicted President Trump on anything. He hasn't admitted that Trump is a criminal target of the investigation. And it's very possible, by the way, that some of the people that are so far targets of the investigation could go free. We had looked all around and scrubbed thousands and thousands and thousands of Hillary Clinton's emails. We had a very clear picture after 9 or 10 months of investigation of this case. Our mind was open to a couple of facts. Maybe something will change in the final month of the investigation, or maybe she'll lie to us during the interview. But she did lie during the interview. She did lie, which is a whole nother kettle of fish. Or maybe we'll need to do additional investigation. But after 9 or 10 months of investigating, and by the way, even if she didn't lie in the interview, she lied to Congress. She said that she didn't share classified information, and that was referred to the FBI. That was one of the reasons that there was an investigation to begin with. After 9 or 10 months of investigating, it looked like on the current course and speed, this is going to end without charges. And so what will we do? Smart people, competent people plan ahead. I know, but maybe if there were competent people involved, that would have happened. But instead it was you, James Comey. And so if you're going to charge, you plan ahead. If you're not going to charge, you plan ahead. And the hard part about this investigation was going to be not charging, because the Obama Justice Department could bring charges against Hillary Clinton without claim of political bias, because they're Democrats. What would be hard for the Obama Justice Department for a bunch of reasons is not to bring charges about Hillary Clinton. That will be hard to do without jeopardizing the reputation of the institutions of justice. So it required thought to think about. So how will we end this in a way that maximizes confidence that we did it in the right way, that the system was not rigged? So that's what I'm doing in the beginning of May, is trying to think through, so how will this end if it continues on this course, on the course that it is right now? So Stephanopoulos asks, and to those who say you should have brought Hillary Clinton before a grand jury, so Comey says, look, I understand why people ask that. We would actually prefer Most people haven't been in front of a grand jury, would prefer with a subject of investigation to do an informal interview. A lot more flexibility there. Flexibility for who? You can bring a lot more people and have a lot more people involved in the questioning, and it offers us an opportunity in a less formal setting to poke at someone. They're still required to tell the truth. That's another thing that gets lost. Stephanopoulos says, well, President Trump says you should have put her under oath. So Comey says, yeah, President Trump's not. I'm sure his lawyers, given this situation, are focusing him on this. It's still a crime to lie to the FBI and federal prosecutors, whether or not you're under oath. It doesn't matter. If you knowingly tell a false statement to the FBI, as Martha Stewart did, as David Petraeus did, as so many others have, you'll be prosecuted for it. It doesn't matter whether or not you're under oath or not. Stephanopoulos asks, so those people, Martha Stewart, I don't think anybody gives a shit what happened with her. She went to jail for some stock insider trading, and to say that actually had any role in restoring confidence in the justice system, I think would be ridiculous. And it happened under George Bush, which of course nobody's confidence was restored. Everybody was pretending that they hated the government at the time, and then once Obama became president, they loved the government again. At the time, I was more of a Ralph Nader supporter. I thought it was amusing. I didn't think it was a huge accomplishment to put Martha Stewart behind prison. And then David Petraeus, I don't know why he even brings him up, because lying under oath to the FBI is such a horrible crime. Wow. I bet there's a lot of suspects that go free who lied to the FBI because the FBI gets them to give them somebody else. Boston Strong. Total witch hunt. Look in Sandy Hook. All the witches live there. We would know if she lied in the interview if they had recorded it. Yeah, that's true. That's another. I think he's about to get to that. What does flexibility have to do with anything? This guy is so full of shit. His spit is beige. Roll Keeler says the truth never gets lost. People are just liars. So let's get going. I don't know if we can. There's another topic in this interview I do want to go through, which has to do with one of the other people involved in this. But let's go through this a little more. And we're going to keep talking a little more about this later this week. Because this is kind of fascinating in how stupid it is. So Stephanopoulos asks, you interview Hillary Clinton, I guess it was July 2nd, 2016, but actually you're not there. So he didn't even interview her yet, and he was writing so that's another thing. He starts writing the exoneration in May before they interview her in July. And he's saying, well, I have to start drafting the indictment or exoneration because, I'm not going to have time to draft it in July. I mean, does anybody actually believe that crap? So Comey says, no, because I'm the director. He's about to say, at that point, the director of the FBI. Only on TV is the director jumping out of helicopters and conducting interviews. My job is to make the final decisions. The pros will do the interviews. Yeah, you've established that you're not a pro. The agents who had actually been investigating her and crawling all around her life for a year, and that's the way it should be. And Stephanopoulos says, and after the interview, what did you learn? Comey says, spent a lot of time on the phone with the team that afternoon and learned that we didn't find anything. The team didn't. That changed their view of the case, that this was a case that the Department of Justice would never prosecute. And most importantly, they didn't want to do additional investigation. There was nothing she said that they believed we could prove was false. And there was nothing else they needed to run down to see if she was testifying to us falsely. And so the view of the team was, we're done here. Our view of the case is firm. No prosecutor would prosecute this case. So Stephanopoulos says, so if no prosecutor would prosecute this case, why not put out a one-line statement, we decline to prosecute? So James Comey says, yeah, it's a great question and a reasonable question. And the reason I thought that would be inappropriate is the faith and confidence of the American people. And this is the biggest backfire of all time. He says, the reason I thought that would be inappropriate is the faith and confidence of the American people in the Department of Justice and the FBI are at the core of those organizations. If they're not believed to be honest, independent, and competent, they're done. if you issue a one-liner from the Obama Justice Department about one of the two candidates for the president of the United States, in this case, the Democratic nominee for president of the United States, and say, we're done here, in the absence of any kind of transparency, corrosive doubt creeps in that system, in that the system is rigged somehow. And so my view was, and there's a long-standing practice of the Department of Justice, that in rare cases, you should offer transparency so the American people can take a look at what you did and know that it was done in an honest, competent, and independent way. Stephanopoulos asked, the Department of Justice, but not the FBI director? Comey says, that's right. What was unusual about this, in fact, unprecedented in my experience, is that I decided it was important that I speak separately from the Attorney General. In the ordinary case, that what we do is that what I said publicly, we'd have sent that to the Department of Justice. And the Attorney General can announce it in any way the Attorney General chose. What was different here is I decided, given some things that had happened, that to protect the institutions, we actually had to step away from the Department of Justice and tell the American people, look, here's what we did, here's what we found, here's what we think. You can count on the fact that this was done in an apolitical way. Your organization of justice acted the way you'd want it to be, and that if I'd done the normal thing, that wouldn't have happened, and the institutions would have been damaged. And then they go into some like crap about would you have done this differently? What have you done otherwise? You know. So Stephanopoulos asks, dig into that. Why could the Attorney General not credibly announce the results of this investigation? So Comey, here he shifts the blame to President Obama. He says, well, for a bunch of reasons, and it's sort of built over the course of the investigation. First of all, we have the problem that President Obama had twice publicly basically said there's no there. In an interview with on Fox, an interview on 60 Minutes, I think, both times he said that. So that's his Justice Department. So basically the president, who usually, and there were lines that were used by President Obama where he said, I don't comment on an investigation, but he did comment. He did comment on the investigation. Stephanopoulos asks, did that surprise you? Comey says, it really did surprise me. He's a very smart man and a lawyer, and so it surprised me. He shouldn't have done it. It was inappropriate. So Stephanopoulos says, did you think he was trying to color the case? Comey says, I don't know. I don't think so. He didn't have any insight into the case. He didn't have any insight into the case. So President Obama states on that. So this is another nugget. Let's read this whole paragraph. Comey says, I don't know. I don't think so. Obama didn't have any insight into the case, at least as far as I know, more than anybody reading the newspaper did, which was zero, because there were no leaks. There were no leaks. Yeah. Like we fucking believe that. I think he felt a pressure in the political environment because he wanted Hillary Clinton to be elected, to give her a shot in the arm. And so he spoke about an investigation, and he shouldn't have done that. But that, as you can imagine, created this drumbeat that the Obama Justice Department, the fix is in because the president has told them what result they should reach. So Comey basically admits that President Obama, speaking out of hand with no in-depth knowledge of the investigation, which, to be honest with you, is wrong, because he actually, there is records showing that he communicated with Hillary Clinton using the private server, through a false account, a different account. So he was complicit in it. He did have knowledge that there was something wrong going on, and Comey is playing the game that he did not know what was really going on, and that was inappropriate that he would comment publicly on an investigation that he didn't know about. But the reality is that there have actually been statements put out that Obama wanted to know about the investigation. Let me see if I can find one. This is from Market Watch. USA Today. This is from February 7th, 2018. Let's see if I can mute this. So this was when they discovered some texts between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and they're from September 2nd, 2016. So that was later, and yeah, it says that they did want to. So yeah, that might have been later. That might have been later than what Comey's talking about. But it contradicts the whole notion that he didn't want to know what was going on with these investigations. Pinochet. What else happened here? Yeah, you guys seem a little sedate right now. The last thing I want to explore at the moment, and we'll revisit this again, is Andrew McCabe. So here we go. Stephanopoulos says eventually the administration does announce that they found that Russia is interfering yet, and this confounds me. I am puzzled by this. Yet when they decide to come out with a joint statement of the intelligence committees, you as the FBI director refuse to sign it. Why? Comey says because of the way we approach action in the run-up to an election. It's not written down despite what you might have heard, but there's an important norm that I've lived my whole government career. I mean, you guys read this too, so I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about here. It's just so weird. There's an important norm that I've lived my entire government career obeying. If you can't avoid it, you should not take any action in the run-up to an election that could have an impact on the election. By that, I mean the FBI or the Department of Justice. And so we were being asked in October to sign on to the statement that says the Russians are messing with our election. In my view, and the view of the FBI leadership, was it's too late and we can avoid action here because the goal's already been accomplished. The American people already know this because lots of government officials have been on background talking to the press about this. Members of Congress have been talking about it. The candidates are talking about it. So the inoculation has already been achieved, and it's October. So we can avoid action here consistent with our policy that whenever possible, we try and avoid action. So we won't sign this. Stephanopoulos says, but doesn't that undercut the weight of the statement? So, Stephanopoulos says, but if it's so important that the Russians might have interfered in the election, but you say, well, I mean, it's too close to the election, and we think that it might actually hurt the integrity of the election if we try to intervene. So we didn't sign the statement that Russia is trying to hack the election. Then doesn't that mean that the statement itself isn't as important? So Comey says, I don't think so. I mean, coming from the director of national intelligence, I don't think anybody noticed at the time that the FBI wasn't on the statement. Okay, but I mean, they didn't notice at the time, but so again, this is PR bullshit because the FBI was not noticed to be on the memo at the time. He's saying, well, I don't think it really affected the credibility or the weight of the statement. It was the secondly of Homeland Security, and he's talking a lot. Comey's sentences are really weird here. It says it was the secondly of the Homeland Security and the director of national intelligence, my boss. No, his boss is not the director of national intelligence. It's the attorney general. I don't think that he's really under. Technically, your boss is the person who can fire you. The only two people that can fire James Comey are the head of the Justice Department, which is the attorney general, and I guess the deputy attorney general, and then there's the president. Those are the three. And I don't think that they would do it. I reported to the attorney general and the director of national intelligence, and so I don't think it undercut the statement. So the director of national intelligence kind of sits at the head of the pyramid. That was James Clapper. And it's almost like they're sitting at the same table, but he's not necessarily Jim Comey's boss, that's kind of a bizarre statement, because the FBI is not thought of as being merely one organ of the intelligence system. It's supposedly you know, if you really look at the way government's supposed to work, they're all independent and they're not subject to pressures from one another. That way you don't have the CIA forcing the FBI to do something or the FBI forcing the NSA to do something. Hopefully you don't. I mean, that's technically the FBI should have the best powers because they're law enforcement, and the other ones are purely intelligence agencies. So it's I mean, those distinctions have to be made clear, and Comey's making them actually harder to understand. WikiLeaks proved that POTUS emailed Hillary on her unclassified server, and his staff discussed how to cover it up. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Truth, Justice, Peace says is all ridiculous. These people should be indicted. Well, I mean, the way things are working, it seems like they're all pretty confident they're not going to be indicted, and you know I'm kind of a natural pessimist on that. So Comey continues, and so I don't think it undercut the statement, but it allowed us to be consistent with our standard, which is, if possible, we should avoid action in the run-up to an election that might have an impact. Here it is impossible because the goal's been achieved already. Stephanopoulos says, did anybody try to convince you to sign it? So Comey says, this is an important part. He says, I think I was asked to sign it by the Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper. I think I explained why I thought the FBI shouldn't sign up at this point. I don't remember any pushback at that. Stephanopoulos says, at the same time, the Hillary Clinton email investigation comes back. When did you first know you were going to have to deal with this again? So Comey says, really, October 27th. Somebody earlier in October, the beginning of October sometime, mentioned to me that there may be a connection between emails found on Anthony Weiner's laptop and the Clinton email investigations. I don't remember. Stephanopoulos says, was this Andrew McCabe? Comey says, I think it was Andrew McCabe, but I'm not certain. I didn't store that in any prominent place in my brain, because how could that possibly be true? Okay, let's read that again, okay? Remember, this is the most important thing that James Comey has been involved in ever. And he says, at the same time, the Hillary Clinton email investigation comes back. When did you first know you were going to have to deal with this again? Comey says, really, October 27th. Somebody earlier in October, he's stuttering the whole time. In the beginning of October sometime, mentioned to me that there may be a connection between emails found on Anthony Weiner's laptop and the Clinton email investigation. I don't remember. Stephanopoulos says, was this Andrew McCabe? Comey says, I think it was Andrew McCabe, but I'm not certain. I didn't store that in any prominent place in my brain because how could that possibly be true? So Stephanopoulos says, but how could that be something you remember? I didn't even read that part yet. So even Stephanopoulos is like, what the fuck are you talking about? I mean, this was the guy that, I mean, you work with the same dude every day, this weirdo, Andy McCabe. And he says, how could that be something you don't remember? So Comey says, that's a great question. I think the answer is because how could that possibly be true? How could there be a connection between Anthony Weiner's laptop and Hillary Clinton's emails? And so I think it was sort of a passing comment to me, and I'm sure I stored it away thinking, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense, but I'm sure they'll tell me if it does, and they did. So then he gets cut off. So Stephanopoulos says, it's led your critics to say that the FBI for several weeks sat on the knowledge that they had several thousand Hillary Clinton emails. James Comey said, yeah, more than several thousand, hundreds. Yeah, and then Stephanopoulos cuts him off again. He says hundreds of thousands. Comey says of thousands on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And I don't know the answer to that criticism. I don't know whether the Bureau team could have moved faster to bring it to me for a decision. All I know is that they did bring it to me on the morning of October 27th. And so there's an Inspector General investigation going on about our work on that investigation. I'm sure they'll say, which I think is great, but I don't know the answer to that now. So this is the most important investigation of his career, and he forgets the timeline. And this is the guy who was supposedly the top cop in the FBI. So Stephanopoulos says, so, and, to be clear, between that first mention on October 27th, you didn't hear anything about Hillary Clinton. Comey says, yeah, I don't. Oh, Hillary Clinton's emails. So Comey says, yeah, I don't remember hearing anything else about it until I walked into a conference room early in the morning. So it's like he gets ambushed at work. He says, I mean, I was about to take a dump first thing in the morning. And, I'm walking to the conference room first because, I got to get in the mood. And I don't remember hearing anything else about it until I walked into a conference room early in the morning on October 27th. So we were now less than 2 weeks from the election. The deputy director emailed me at about 5:30 in the morning and said, the mid-year team, which was a code name for the Clinton email investigation, needs to meet with you. And it's unusual to email me at 5:30 in the morning. And so I'm arranged to meet with the team. And I walked in with a stupid smile on my face, I think, and said, the band is back together, because they were sitting in the same seats they'd sat in so many times. I didn't smile again for a long time like that after that. And what they told me was, we have found, for reasons we can't explain, hundreds of well, you can't explain it because you didn't do the first investigation correctly. So the fact that you can't explain that you didn't find where her emails went could be construed as meaning that you didn't do the investigation properly, because you didn't investigate all of the people involved in that affair. That's my addition. That's not in the transcript. That you guys get for free. We have found, for reasons we can't explain, hundreds of thousands of Hillary Clinton's emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And something much more important than that, thousands of emails from Hillary Clinton's BlackBerry domain. She used a BlackBerry for the first 3 months or so of her tenure as Secretary of State before setting up the personal server in the basement. And the reason that matters so much is, if there was going to be a smoking gun where Hillary Clinton was told, don't do this, or this is important and proper, it's highly likely to be at the beginning. And we never found those emails. And so now they're telling me, for reasons we can't explain, thousands of those BlackBerry emails are on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And so I said, okay, we got to go get them. How fast can you review these? And the answer was, we can't possibly finish before the election because we have to read tens of thousands of emails. We can't ask recruits to come in and review them because you have to know the context. And so I'm sitting there on the morning of October 27th. They're telling me there's material that may change the conclusion of this case. We all agree, including the Department of Justice, we've got to get a search warrant to get these. And then the question for me is so what do we do? Remember, the norm is, if you can avoid it, you take no action that might have an impact on an election. And I'm sitting there on the morning of October 27th. I can't see a door that's labeled no action here. I can see only 2 doors, and they're both actions. One says speak, the other says conceal. So Stephanopoulos says, well, no, you could have tried to find out first whether or not they were indeed relevant, whether there was evidence there of a crime. And Comey says, well, maybe, and maybe another director might have done that. My view is that we would be a potentially deeply irresponsible and this dangerous thing to do, to gamble. Remember, the team is telling you we cannot evaluate this material before the election. So, I can't read through this whole thing because it's actually, I'm not even halfway through it. So, we're just going to have to table this discussion until tomorrow. We're going to have to go through a couple other topics. Let me read a couple of your comments here. Pinochet says, if I don't see at least one of these dirtbags perp walk before 2020, it will affect the way I vote. That's BS. The NYPD told them about it 2 days after they scanned Weiner's laptop. Geez, these guys suck at lying. So yeah, I heard that too, by the way. I think I heard that earlier in October. The NYPD made several officers sign NDAs regarding Weiner's laptop in late 2015, and one leaked to the media in July of 2016. The proof of her being told it's not wise to have a private server was in her emails with Sidney Blumenthal. So yeah, that's there's a lot going on here, and we're gonna have to pause for today on the Comey Mierda investigation. So last bit of news today, Jeremy Corbyn. I said earlier that, and I had to throw it in, that I did agree with him on one issue, which was his approach to Syria. But thank God he made up for it by doing something else that was ridiculous and saying, they backed a strike by McDonald's workers, at which in Britain, obviously, where only 21 out of 120,000 workers agreed to it. So a Jeremy Corbyn-backed plot to close McDonald's for a day has been botched after just 21 of the fast food giant's 120,000 workers agreed to take part, the Sun can reveal. The Bakers Union was hoping for a mass walkouts at McDonald's 1,270 restaurants across the UK on May 1st to protest against 0 hours contracts and to demand a minimum £10 an hour wage for all workers. But the plans lie in tatters after just 35 workers replied to a ballot and only 21 agreed to strike. Labour's shadow chancellor, John McDonnell, is so desperate to rescue the botched plot to close McDonald's for a day that he's hosting a rave at a London nightclub on Friday. The union is charging up to £12 a head for the McStrike party in Tottenham Hale, northeast London, raising money for its strike fund. So they're raising more than an hour of their desired wage in order to support their bullshit strike. The Bakers Union is also protesting against McDonald's 0 hours contracts, despite 8 in 10 McDonald's workers opting to stay on the flexible contracts when the firm offered every one of its 120,000 workers guaranteed hours last month. McDonald's also launched a probe into reports of bullying from the left-wing union, with activists accused of intimidating workers into backing the strikes. The union has not yet responded to a request for comment on these allegations. The spokesman for, so I don't know if that's actually true because, you know, I mean, I'm not going to support McDonald's. I mean, you're really asking me to, it's the same as, what's funny is, you know, I'm getting all these moral dilemmas, you know, support war against Bashar Assad, who I hate, or, you know, support the facts, which indicate he didn't kill his own people. Oppose Corbyn's bullshit strike against McDonald's, but also believe McDonald's nonsense about people getting bullied by these union people, which, you know, that may have happened. I just, you know what? I'll reserve judgment. I'll reserve judgment because I don't trust McDonald's either. Dirty commie. Yeah, I agree. I hate Jeremy Corbyn. I wish he was, you know, I wish him ill. I wish him ill. Isn't that enough of a? Do you wish him ill, Pinochet? Do you wish? I think we can agree that we both wish ill of Jeremy Corbyn. So they said it is regrettable that during this process we've had reports of intimidation of our people from activists. That is not behavior we tolerate under any circumstances, and we intend to investigate this further. We take interest in the well-being of our people very seriously. I can't believe this, and encourage anyone to speak up if they've ever had any concerns. Our people can talk to our managers and raise issues. This is McDonald's talking. I mean, does anybody really believe this crap? I don't believe the Labor Party either, but, you know, if you're a McDonald's worker over there, you must be saying, you know, for fuck's sake, I'm just trying to, you know, earn enough money to pay rent and toke up and you know, buy some mace so one of these migrants doesn't stab me. Our people can talk to our managers and raise issues informally or more formally through our grievance procedure, and this is our preferred route to dealing with the issues related to our workforce. We remain committed to our people and their well-being at work. News of the botched plot to close McDonald's. Here, let me show the rest of this just because we're almost at the end. News of the botched plot to close McDonald's comes after a Corbynista candidate selected to stand in a top Labour target seat of the next election launched a foul-mouthed rant against McDonald's workers. Jane Aitchison, selected for the marginal West Yorkshire seat of Pudsey, responded to news that McDonald's was creating 2,500 new jobs by tweeting, "Shit food, shit jobs. This is what they want for us." Well, I mean, what is she? Either you do want McDonald's or you don't want McDonald's. Okay, if you're trying to organize a strike in order to make sure that there's less McDonald's in the country, then you're not actually trying to benefit the workers. You just want to close McDonald's. So you should say it that way. You shouldn't be duplicitous about it. And then that's kind of why I think you know, it's a bullshit cause. You know, labor unions, they don't create jobs. So yeah, I figured I would include that one. Supporting Dershowitz logical arguments, LOL, same thing. I mean, Dershowitz himself, I mean, you'll never see me call Dershowitz Mr. Truth. I mean, he can still leopards yawn. Did I just yawn? I have a friend who always accuses me of yawning nervously. Yeah, leopards yawn. Here, I'll show you one. There's a leopard yawning. So, last thing. So back to the Rachel Maddow and Huffington Post story. So last week I did release, and you know, I'll show you the link in the description. If I did I even include it? No, I didn't. So in any case, you can find that in the description anyway. If you go to my BitChute videos, you have these three. Okay, these are the videos relating to the whole thing with Rachel Maddow and her showing fake news of Bernie supporters who allegedly were infiltrated by Russian trolls. So I want you to do two things, possibly three things. Okay. Yeah, first of all, watch those videos. Second of all, share those videos, and included in sharing is upvoting and you know, writing positive comments, because in this respect you should all be supporting me, right? No, but seriously, watch those videos. It's in 3 parts on BitChute. There is a YouTube out there too. It's an hour and a half long. I just didn't include it in this one. I want you guys to at least check out BitChute. If you don't like BitChute, let me know why. I think it's pretty good. Democrats are pissed at Dershowitz. They damn right are, because he's not going along with their nonsense in regards to the Trump investigation. But you know, he's a criminal defense lawyer. That's sort of his gig. He believes in a lot of these. I mean, I haven't commented on it yet, but you know, I heard this weekend. BitChute is Jimmy Ross. BitChute is a YouTube alternative site, so it works a little differently. It's peer to peer. The videos load a little differently, but trust me, it's and by the way, the videos have to be a little shorter, so they're a half hour long, and so you can watch the interview in 3 parts. So you can watch the first part, and then, you know, go have a cigarette, come back, watch the second part. After the second part, you know, you go inside, you maybe you know, write your child support payment to your ex-wife, and then you watch the third part, and then you try to and if you haven't done, you know, the child support payment, you kind of plan out how to avoid the police during the week for being a deadbeat dad. Stormy Daniels is a asshole is a BitChute. What does it do? Yeah, yeah. Dershowitz is a criminal defense lawyer, so that's his craft. Dershowitz, I hate him and he's a liar, but sometimes he's the only truth on MSM. Look, it's not always about necessarily trusting everything a person says, but you know, when you have a person who, look, we're talking about criminal law. Dershowitz can offer a legal opinion. I can't. I'm not a lawyer. I heard 2 lawyers this week. You know, when I asked one of them what the whole procedure is with somebody who gets raided like that. One of them says, "I don't even know. I don't even have no clue." And he asked his friend, who was another lawyer. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not sure either. If the lawyer was implicated in something illegal, then attorney-client privilege goes out the window." But Dershowitz would have, first of all, it shouldn't be virtually automatic that your lawyer gets busted for something like this, okay? Unless they really were deliberating a long case about him. I don't think they should have arrested or raided the office of this Michael Cohen guy. And now they're back to the bullshit about him being in Prague, which was demonstrably false. So look, back to my stuff about the Maddow interview. Again, you should watch those interviews, or the 3-part interview. You should share the interview. Again, I'll show you the BitChute link. because I do want you guys to try BitChute. Next time it will be maybe DTube. DTube is my new. I'm still going to be on YouTube, by the way. I'm just saying, give it a shot. You know, if you don't like it, you can always blame me. It's basically the same video as here, except with a little more music, because let's just say the rules are a little less constrictive there. So go look at those three, and let me know what you think, and share the video, and upvote the video, and tell your friends to watch the video, and that's basically it. And if you do really like the video, I want you to email people like Tim Pool, whose website is here. You can see, so it's timcast.com, and ask him to help me by featuring this, you know, not featuring the video necessarily, but actually, you know, here's his email, tim@tag.ly. So email him and get him to help me cover this, because, you know, I think that it's more important for the story to get out there than for it just to be about my videos. You know, I'm willing to have somebody else contact the people I talk to and spread the story and make it a real issue. And you know, if my video gets more views, absolutely, I'd be happy. And that's why I'm telling you to watch my video. I'm telling you also that based on this, pass it on to another person who has even a bigger audience. He'll get a bigger video. His video will get a lot of hits. The story will become a major issue. It will probably touch off a lot of problems with MSNBC, and not just MSNBC, because this week I was doing a little reading about, you know, something that I'd missed earlier that could potentially be just as bad. And that's that Ryan Grimm, for those of you that have waited until now, this is the big reveal that I have today. And I could have revealed it last week, so it's not as if I'm saying something that is massive news for the story, but it's just more substantiation. Ryan Grimm, who's now working at The Intercept, who at the time was working for Huffington Post, was the person who originally spread John Mattis. This is it. John Mattis. Last June, John Mattis started noticing something coursing like a virus through the Facebook page he helped administer for Bernie Sanders fans in San Diego. People with no apparent ties to California were friending the page and sharing links from unfamiliar sites full of anti-Hillary Clinton propaganda. So right off the bat, the terminology is off. You don't friend a page, you join it. And this is not a page on Facebook, it's a group. The fact of the matter, it's a Facebook group, it's not a page. So people were joining the group, according to this guy, and sharing memes that were anti-Hillary after the campaign was over. And then it says, the headline is also misleading, by the way. The headline is also misleading. Okay? It says, Bernie Sanders' campaign faced a fake news tsunami. This is not the campaign. This is not the campaign. This is fan pages. This is fan groups. It has nothing to do with the campaign. So Ryan Grimm, formerly of Huffington Post, now of The Intercept, and still with TYT, he propagated a lie. He basically has stabbed his own public in the back, the progressive people. He's supposed to be investigating things in order to find the truth. Instead, he's disseminating lies on behalf of a Clinton mole who worked for David Brock, in my opinion. In my opinion, I believe John Mattis at this point, it looks like he was actually working for Correct the Record or one of those organizations. He's mentioned American Bridge 21st Century, which is a David Brock super PAC. So yes, Ryan Grimm wrote this article and another article. This is from April 2017. Bernie backing Albanian fake news site proprietor closes up shop. You know, and they were talking about this. You know, a couple of fake news sites. Alimi also created the Facebook page Bernie Sanders Lovers, which says it's based in Burlington, Vermont. That page has more than 88,000 followers and is still operating. When Alimi set up his websites, 22 states had already counted their votes in the Democratic primary, and the chances of Sanders becoming the nominee were slim. But the sites continued to share fake stories on Clinton while trying to reinforce support for Sanders. The underlying message was clear: Sanders supporters should not endorse Clinton. Alimi's sites distributed their content via Facebook, where it raised eyebrows but was also widely shared. The content on Alimi's sites wasn't original, rather it was republished from elsewhere on the web. Fake news stories published on the sites included an allegation that Clinton was heading a secret pedophile ring in the United States and that her advisor, Huma Abedin, had ties to radical Islam. Some of the pieces published on the Predicted carried the byline Anthony Citron, which Alimi removed from one piece after HuffPost asked about Citron's identity. Alimi said in an email that Citron was just the name of the internet account admin who posted it. John Maddow, 66, a Bernie Sanders supporter who has been a television reporter and Senate investigator, says Alimi's sites raised serious questions. Citing a CIA report on Russian interference in the U.S. presidential election, he noted that Russia's Foreign Military Intelligence Agency probably began cyber operations aimed at the U.S. election by March 2016. Alimi registered his sites around that time as well, but he says he was genuinely trying to get into the news business by republishing content. Not a single article is written by us. I am not to blame. People who have worked with me on the websites have not written any articles, he said in Albanian. We have only tried to be a serious newspaper. He also said he set up the Facebook page because he's a Sanders fan. The idea came up with one friend when we were following the U.S. elections and the movement of Bernie Sanders. The page has been operating since March 2016. We have never been an official page of Bernie Sanders. Everyone has the right to open his own fan page to give his opinions, but not to make fake news. Mattis isn't convinced. How did he set up the sites if he barely reads English, he asked. How did he know what to copy every day, and who fed him copy? So Alimi said he has no connection to Russia. I really feel bad I am accused of having a connection to Russia. I feel very bad. Some people have said we are writing fake news, that we are working for Russia, and so on, he said. It is true that people have only been focusing on us, but all the news on our sites has not been written by us. We asked by email if we could republish the articles. Most said yes. Our goal was to make a serious newspaper, and if you see one story written by us, you're free to judge us. Look at what sort of news our other pages publish. We have nothing to do with fake news. But he acknowledges that when he first started out, he may have been trafficking in fake news on Beans.com. The Predicted.com, he said, was better. And Beans.com maybe can be fake sources. When the Predicted.com, we checked first if the news was real and then post, he said in an email. Asked about any money he made from the sites, Alimi wouldn't go into specifics. It was not a big sum of money, he said. It was not a full-time job, and we didn't have a lot of likes. Other pages had more likes. We didn't make fake news like the others to get more web visitors like the Macedonians. Alimi said his dream is to set up an online newspaper in the U.S., but we don't have the money to invest or pay American journalists. We need them because our English isn't so good. And by the way, if we had been for the Russians, would we have continued after the elections, he added. So, I mean, is that not a fair point? Why is it that they went after the election and they kept sharing stuff? Alimi said he thinks his site's impact was relatively small. He added in an email that he had voluntarily turned over the Facebook page to Sanders supporters and no longer controls it. Still, the proliferation of fake news in the run-up to the 2016 election certainly could have played a part in dividing Democrats on Clinton. Aidan King, who set up a pro-Sanders Reddit page in 2013 and later worked for the campaign, told HuffPost last month that he noticed a shift in tone on many pro-Sanders Facebook pages after the primary. I've gone back and forth on it, King said. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying with any authority it's a coordinated effort by trolls, but also wouldn't feel confident saying it was exclusively pissed off Bernie supporters. So MSNBC's Rachel Maddow highlighted Alimi's sites in a segment earlier this year after HuffPost published a piece about them. But Alimi doesn't want the attention. After a series of fact-checking emails for this article last week, he said he'd had enough. I'm not doing this anymore, Alimi said. I'm going to close my website. True to his word, he did. So, you know, I'll tell you one thing, okay? The truth is, if you go on Facebook, and I'm getting tired of using Facebook, but the fact is I still have a lot of contacts there that I would lose, and that's the only consideration that keeps me on there. I find a lot of my interview subjects through Facebook. It's going to be more annoying doing it through Twitter, and it's just a personal preference. But I'll say one thing about the story about opening pages and opening groups. So I opened Bold Like a Leopard. It was originally. This is a funny confession, but it was originally called the Oozing Ruptured Spleen of Liberty because liberals are called bleeding heart liberals. So I said, why not a ruptured spleen for libertarianism and free markets? This ruptured spleen of liberty. So that did not take off. So I changed it to Bold Like a Leopard. And I'll tell you what, the way to grow on Facebook was kind of, you would have to basically run ads, pay them $10 here, $5 there, and they would expose your page to more people, and you could pick the geographical area. And I did. And it was a lot of, I spent plenty of money in order to get the page more supporters, and eventually they stopped actually giving me yield because I'd keep paying, and I would see that it was exposed to less and less people, even though I kept buying ads. This was like at the very end. So I stopped, and I said, at this point, I still want to post. The election is over. I still want to post, but I'm not paying any more money for Facebook. So that's when I started doing more stuff on YouTube, more stuff on my personal blog, struttingleopard.blogspot.com. I started doing more work off of Facebook and sharing it on Facebook, and that sucked. It really did. Hillary won the election. Nini Nanu. Well, welcome to the page. You're going to have a lot of fun with the people on here. Welcome to the video. Welcome to this stream. Hillary won the election. In any case, this is probably one of my friends. So the bottom line is that when you open a page on Facebook or a group, and you let them, you let people join the group, or you let people like the group, there's no reason. You found rupture. Oh my God, Verl Keeler. I remember that story. That's disgusting. That is disgusting, man. I can't believe you put that up there. I remember that story. That was disgusting with the dude and the horse. What was it? I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Enumclaw. Wow. How does he remember that? So such a distraction. Anyway, so this article is missing a lot of the elements of Facebook. The fact is that if you live in a country, even I mean, let's say Canada, let's say the Dominican Republic, and you want to open a Facebook page pertaining to American elections, there's nothing stopping you from doing it. You can open a Facebook page. You can say, plumbers for Rick Santorum, or lumberjacks for Nikki Haley, whatever it might be. And nobody there's nothing on Facebook that has ever said that it's illegal, or that it's against the terms of service for a foreign resident or citizen to open a page in support of somebody in a foreign country. I mean, let's go to Facebook right now, and I have a feeling I'll find a Facebook page on this. So here's a page: Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn supporters. So that's automatically 2 countries. I mean, is that interference in an election? Because they're 2 different countries, and people are supporting elections in both countries. And really, as much as I dislike both of those candidates, but let's be honest. There's nothing illegal. There was nothing ever said on Facebook that would disqualify that. Let's see here. Corbyn. Yeah, there's a community in the UK called Bernie Sanders UK. Is that illegal? I mean, wait. So should it have to be explicit? Where do you draw the line? And that's why I'm saying that the more that they try to make Facebook constrained and say, well, you're from Barbados, you shouldn't be sounding off on politics in the USA. Then where do they draw the line? Does Facebook then, let's say the government of Colombia subpoenas Facebook and they say, look, we know people who are living in Peru that are trying to influence our elections. So does Facebook automatically cave to every one of these countries? And they have been, by the way, in China especially. So that's the final point, that this is that they're always objecting to foreign interference in American elections. What does that mean? Does that mean that we as Americans can't comment on elections in Mexico? Does that mean that Mexicans can't comment on elections in, Russia? Where does it end? Where does it end? Ryu Cisco, what are you watching my channel now? I thought we were. What's going on, by the way? I saw what's her name, Trio Logic. She's asking, how is that Farrakhan feminism going? Well, you're going to hear more about Farrakhan feminism this week, but today is not about Farrakhan feminism. But there will be more about Farrakhan feminism this week. That I can guarantee you. I think there's a certain rally going on. James Dietrich says, remember when Hillary got subpoenaed instead of a warrant, and Cheryl Mills got attorney-client privilege, even though that's the one that keeps getting mentioned. Cheryl Mills, she was part of the investigation in terms of one of the accomplices, but she got attorney-client privilege in order to investigate the documents. So she was involved in the actual scandal, but she didn't recuse herself. So yeah, that's an excellent example, and I've been hearing it over and over again. So James is correct. How many midnight tokers here? These dank hits for you? I thought you were already drunk, man. James Dietrich says, if Facebook admits to curating rather than being a platform, then they can be held liable for damages for posted content. I think Shapiro said something about that. Ryu Shiska says, just came around to see what you are about. I can leave. Look, we talked about, I'll tell you what, I'll say this. Tree of Logic, she tries very hard with her channel, and she's very dedicated to her fans. But, we have different goals. Her goal, I think, is more to reach people and bring them together that are already on the same opinion. My goal is to change minds and to expose stories. And she can give her take on events, but what I'm doing here is a lot different for what she's doing here, and I don't think that she, I don't think that she believes in what I do. So that's where the difference of opinion is. And if people think I'm bitter about it, well, I mean, look at her channel. So she has a lot of fun doing it, but the ultimate goal, in my opinion, is if I can't, put out stories there that I think will cause a change, start to do things that people will notice, and it's not just, by the way, if you know that you're going to be either chatting with or calling into Tree's show this week, tell her about my story on Rachel Maddow. That's me exposing a fake news story that Rachel Maddow did. Okay. And I'm about to end here, but if you watch this stream from the beginning, I started with it and I'm going to end with it. The fact is that Rachel Maddow and the Huffington Post and Politico published articles where they indicated that Pro Keeler, stop it. I can't look at the chat even. It's impossible. So the issue is that Rachel Maddow, she published unverified smears against Bernie Sanders voters and their Facebook groups, trying to tell them, oh, you were duped by Russia and Macedonian and Albanian trolls in the election. But the fact of the matter is that never occurred, and I found the evidence that it's all a lie. So Ryu, you're welcome to come here anytime. You can troll me, but if you actually look through what I've been sharing, I think I found something, and I'm hoping other people look at it and they look and see that I did find something, and those people will finally get their day in the sun. Those people that were smeared by Rachel Maddow, by Politico, by the Huffington Post, by TYT now. You know, TYT, the one of their reporters, actually it's technically not by TYT, forget it, but it's one of the guys who appears on it regularly, Ryan Grimm. So, you know, you have to be open to the fact that Tree of Logic's channel is a good channel, but we have different purposes. So that's about it. And, you know, give her my best. You know, I hope to speak to her soon. The DNC is the ultimate source of the whole Russia narrative. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that. Everybody who's on here knows that. That's it. Farrakhan feminism again. Thank you, Ryu Shiska, for mentioning it. And you know, we're gonna have, you know, continuing throughout this week. Hopefully, we're going to. Dude, I don't troll. How am I trolling? I haven't said anything that was trolling. I just asked you a question. I don't see the question though. She asks, how's the Farrakhan feminism going? Well, okay, so the Farrakhan feminism, since you're asking, we're not going to end yet because Ryu Shiska wants to know about that. There happens to be a rally happening this month with Malik Zulu Shabazz. I'll find the rally. And he's the head of Black Lawyers for Justice. And they're going to march in support for, so it's actually featured in Fox News. So, you know, Farrakhan feminism, you might be laughing now, but, you know, it's going to continue to be an issue here. So they're going to do, let me see what date this is. April 18th through 22nd. So Ryu Shiska, you might think that this is irrelevant, and you might agree with Tree that I can't convince anybody because you're of the belief that why even try to convince people of anything? But then you have these people, they're marching in Washington, D.C. Al Sharpton is involved in it. Al Sharpton works for MSNBC. Al Sharpton is now affiliated with a group of harsh racists. So, you know, the more, like, I don't understand what her point is, okay? Do you just want to be passive? Do you want people to just do things, you know, without actually reacting? Do you want to just talk to people who are other conservatives? Or do you want to actually change minds? And the way she's going about it, I don't think she's trying to change minds. I think that she wants to consolidate the conservative movement, which is good for her, but that's not what I'm trying to do. So what I do is in regards to Farrakhan feminism. So this is in 2 days. In 2 days, there's going to be a rally in Washington, D.C. in support of Farrakhan well, technically, yeah, it isn't in support of Farrakhan feminism. So they're gonna rally in support of Louis Farrakhan to the U.S. Congress and tell the CBC to support Louis Farrakhan and Colin Kaepernick. And you don't think that could be a crucial point where you say to the Women's March, well, I mean, here you have somebody who is an anti-feminist who says that black women's mouths are like snake pits. I don't care if I'm being repetitive, by the way. Black women's mouths are like snake pits. He says that the houses it's actually the businesses of Koreans and Arabs should be confiscated by the black community. So you have the opportunity to expose that if you support Farrakhan feminism. The fact that people are skeptical that this is an effective tactic to show, you know, quote unquote liberals that they're actually supporting a person who is more xenophobic, more sexist, more hateful towards all of those people. Then, for example, Steve Bannon, who they won't shut up about. Okay, so then you don't have any faith in your own cause. You really don't. I'm the person who believes in changing minds. You're the person who believes in preaching to the choir, and we'll never agree on that. So that's what I have to say about Farrakhan feminism, and that's why I'm trying to do it. I don't know what you're trying to do. So, you know, you're welcome here anytime. You can ask me the question again next time, and it's going to be the same. There's going to be an update, but it's going to be the same answer. So, if you notice, if you go back to the beginning of this stream, I am working on other things. And Tree of Logic, she thought, the only thing I'm working on is Farrakhan feminism. It's like I'm solely obsessed with it. No, I've been trying to expose this Rachel Maddow story too. Would I get any support from her? I don't think so. I think she would say the same thing. She would say, "What's the point? They're liberals. What's the point of revealing anything? What's the point of telling the truth?" No, that's the wrong attitude to take, and it's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to change the tone of the country, and you're just gonna we're just going to get more bitter and more cynical about it. And I've been cynical before, and I don't have to keep getting more cynical. So last comments. Ray Mancow is a leading androgyne mouthpiece of the trans apocalypse. So Ryushishka, I mean, I hope I explained what I was talking about, but you're not going to tell me, on my stream whether Farrakhan feminism is important or not. I mean, if you haven't read the articles are in the description. You can read all you want about it. And this is an excellent time for you to explore Farrakhan feminism in real time. You can open those articles and actually read something, in real time and actually figure out what I was talking about. No, you came here, and I'm telling you, you can find out more and more. I'll talk as long as it takes to talk about Farrakhan feminism and convince people of the merit of the whole argument. The merit of the whole argument is this: that the Women's March is a divided movement, even though they present a united front. And you have to show the divisions by using Farrakhan's own rhetoric, where he attacks Koreans, he attacks Arabs, he attacks women. And that's how you get individuals to quit the movement. You're not going to get the Women's March to fall apart from the top. You're not going to get leaders to fall apart from the top. And that wasn't what I was saying to Tree of Logic. And I said that to Tree of Logic. So that's all I have to say about that. And we can talk about Farrakhan feminism later this week too. Zuckerberg runs all of Facebook to favor Democrats. Democrats want us to believe in the Russians on Facebook that did Hillary in. Verl's final comment is voting in the current system is futile since you're pledging allegiance to either the Democrats or the Republicans. Yeah, like I said, with Republicans this weekend, talking to them, you would think that they hadn't changed any of their attitudes since the Bush administration. So, I agree with Verl on that. So, that's it. I've gone on long enough. If you missed the beginning of the stream, you can go back, watch it. You can see all my videos again on the Rachel Maddow expose. I expose how she used fake news, basically from a journalist in San Diego, to smear a couple Bernie Sanders groups and make believe that the Russians hacked the election through Facebook groups. Yeah, I mean, in California, where Hillary outperformed the polls. And the whole interview, it shows you that the whole thing is preposterous, that those people who were Bernie Sanders group members, they said that this guy had never been an admin. They said that they had no evidence that he donated to Bernie Sanders. And I looked at the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. It doesn't even have his name in connection to Bernie Sanders. So there's so much evidence. It's an hour and a half. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm not going to stop. Arjun Sinya, if Assad is dethroned, there's a possibility that the country might descend into chaos. Okay, so Arjun, I have to go. I've been on long enough. So we'll talk again later this week, maybe. And Ryu, again, I mean, you're welcome back. And if you want to hear more about Farrakhan feminism, I have several videos below. They're in the, I'll show it to you right now. I like to pimp my own shit. So you have here, these are the first two videos, and this was episode 4, and somewhere episode 3 is somewhere in the mix. So those are the videos. This is the latest article on it. This was Oh wait, no, all four videos are in there. So you can see whatever you want regarding Farrakhan feminism here. So you don't have to just watch my live video. I mean, if you want to know more about Farrakhan feminism, you can watch the videos themselves, and then you can come to your own conclusion if you think it's bullshit. That live video of him, raw video footage of him saying those things it does exist, and it's been covered up, and nobody talks about it because people only want to focus on the anti-Semitism, which is not even important in this case because everybody already knows that. So that's it. Yes, Vero Keeler, thank you. Great show, Bold. See you later. James Dietrich. We have the choice of either a 20-year presence at the point or let ISIS. Okay, so never mind. I'm done. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you later.